Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive. This time, we're going to be taking a look at wind energy.
Okay.
We've got some great information from IRENA, the International Renewable Energy Agency. We'll be talking about its history, its potential, and,
Looking ahead.
yeah, looking ahead, what might be next.
Right.
So, to start things off, I think we all see these giant wind turbines all over the place.
Yeah.
But how do they actually work? What's the process of taking the wind and turning it into electricity?
Well, basically it comes down to a few energy conversions. The wind has kinetic energy, and that spins the blades,
Oh,
which
wow.
turns a generator, which creates the electricity.
So it's not just catching the wind, there's a whole process of conversion.
Yeah, a series of conversions.
Wow. What are some of the factors that determine how much power a turbine can generate?
So you've got the size of the turbine, you've got the length of the blades,
Mm-hmm.
but one of the most important is wind speed.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And the relationship between wind speed and power is not linear, it's cubic. So if you double the wind speed,
Uh-huh.
you get 8 times more power.
Wow. So even a slight increase in wind speed
Huge increase in the power output.
leads to a huge jump in power.
Exactly.
Okay. That makes a lot of sense why we see the massive turbines out at sea,
Yeah,
where the winds are
much stronger.
stronger and
Thick point.
consistent.
More consistent.
But wind energy, as a concept, isn't new, is it?
Not at all.
I was reading about some of those early pioneers who were experimenting with wind power in the late 1800s.
Yeah, that's right. The first wind turbines generating electricity were built in the 1880s
In the 1880s.
in the UK and the US.
Wow.
But really, the pioneers were the Danes. They were building 22.8-meter turbines as far back as 1897.
Oh, wow. That's incredible. 1897.
Yeah.
Wow. That's pretty early for something that massive.
It's remarkable the ingenuity to build something that tall way back then.
So even with all these early innovations, it took a while for wind power to really take off, didn't it?
It did, yeah. It wasn't until the 1980s that we saw the modern wind power sector emerge.
Oh, okay.
And then the technology has just been advancing so rapidly since then.
I see.
I mean, in 1985, you had turbines with a capacity of just 0.05 megawatts and 15-meter rotors.
Mm.
And now we have, 3-4 megawatt turbines on shore. And then offshore, you're looking at 8-12 megawatts.
That's a huge increase in just a few decades.
It is, yeah.
I imagine that's part of why we're seeing such phenomenal growth globally
Oh, yeah,
in wind energy installations.
absolutely. Global installed capacity has increased, according to IRENA, by a factor of 98 since 2000.
That's wild.
That's almost a 100-fold increase.
So onshore capacity has gone from 178 gigawatts in 2010 to 699 gigawatts in 2020.
That's right. And offshore, that has jumped from a mere 3.1 gigawatts to 34.4 gigawatts over the same period.
Wow. What's driving that incredible growth?
I think it's really a combination of factors. You've got research and development, significant investments that have been made leading to technological advancements. You've also got supportive policies around the world that are,
Encouraging development.
yeah, encouraging and incentivizing the development of wind farms.
And I imagine the cost of wind energy has come down significantly.
Oh, yeah, it's really drops dramatically.
Yeah.
So the global average cost of electricity from onshore wind has plummeted by 56% between 2010 and 2020.
Wow.
And offshore wind cost nearly halved during that time. So this cost competitiveness is making it much more attractive,
Okay.
a viable alternative to fossil fuels.
So it seems like wind power is really on a roll.
It really is, yeah.
But where do we go from here? What does the future hold for wind energy?
Well, we've only just begun to tap into the potential of wind power.
Okay.
Both onshore and offshore have a lot more to offer,
Yeah.
especially as technology continues to evolve.
I've heard a lot about the potential of offshore wind. Why is it so promising?
Well, offshore, you tend to have stronger and more consistent winds,
Oh, okay.
which means you can generate more power, and then they also have less visual impact on land,
I see.
which can be a concern for some communities.
Mm.
And of course, there's just more space available offshore to develop large-scale wind farms.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
So more power, less visual impact, and just access to
Vast wind resource.
huge wind resources. But wouldn't harnessing wind power far out at sea make it harder to actually get that energy to where it's needed?
That is a challenge.
Mm.
The best locations for wind farms are not always close to
Cities.
the major cities and population centers.
Hmm.
So we need to develop that transmission infrastructure.
Okay.
to transport the energy from those remote areas to the places where the demand is high.
So it's like creating a highway system for
Yeah,
clean energy.
exactly.
But developing in these remote areas, wouldn't that
Create some opportunity.
create some opportunities, right?
Yeah, it could be a real boon for economic development.
I see.
For those regions, bring much needed jobs and investment.
So it's not just about the clean energy, but it's also about revitalizing.
Yeah, creating opportunities.
Yeah, creating opportunities.
Absolutely.
That's a good point. Thinking about the social and economic impacts,
Yeah.
as well as the environmental.
Absolutely.
It's about creating a more sustainable future on all fronts.
Precisely. And, finding innovative ways to harness wind power in diverse environments. Have you heard much about floating offshore wind?
I've heard the term before,
Okay.
but I'd love to share more about it.
So basically, you're taking these wind turbines
Okay.
and putting them on these gigantic floating platforms
Okay.
way out in the deep ocean where the winds are even stronger.
Wow. So how do they keep these massive turbines stable out there in the open ocean?
Well, they're designed with these complex ballast and mooring systems to ensure stability, even in rough seas. And because they're not anchored to the seabed, they can be deployed in much deeper waters,
Okay.
which opens up vast areas for wind energy development.
So we've got onshore wind, we've got offshore wind, and now we've got floating offshore wind.
That's right.
It seems like the wind energy landscape is just evolving constantly. What else is on the horizon? What else might the future hold for wind energy?
Well, that's a great question. I think researchers and innovators around the world are exploring all sorts of exciting possibilities.
Mm-hmm.
You've got artificial intelligence, you've got material science, even robotics.
Oh, wow.
All of these have the potential to really impact the future of wind energy.
So it seems like we've just scratched the surface.
Yeah,
With
absolutely.
what wind energy can do.
I think so.
I'm really curious to learn more about some of these emerging technologies.
Let's dive into that next time.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah,
So let's unpack some of those emerging technologies you mentioned.
sure.
You said artificial intelligence could play a role. How so?
Yeah. So imagine AI analyzing massive amounts of data, like weather patterns, turbine performance, even grid demand,
Yeah.
and using that to really optimize the operations of a wind farm.
Oh, I see.
So you could have AI systems that are predicting wind fluctuations very accurately.
So it's almost like a conductor,
Yeah.
making sure all of the wind turbines are in sync with each other, energy storage, and the grid itself.
Yeah, exactly.
Huh. But you also mentioned material science.
Yeah.
What about that?
Lighter, stronger, more aerodynamic turbine blades.
Oh.
So material science is leading to those advancements, which means you can capture even more energy from the wind.
So bigger, more efficient turbines.
Exactly.
Huh.
Right.
What about robotics? How could that contribute?
Robotics is great for turbine maintenance.
Oh, okay.
Think about robots that can climb those massive towers
Okay.
to do inspections or even repairs, making the whole process safer and more efficient.
Yeah, I imagine that would reduce costs and downtime, keep things running smoothly.
Yeah.
Okay, so it sounds like a lot of these innovations are aimed at making wind energy more reliable and cost-effective.
Yeah.
But even with all these advancements, we still have the challenge of intermittency, right? I mean,
Yeah.
the wind doesn't always blow when we need it.
You're absolutely right. But that's where energy storage comes in.
Okay.
So if you can store that excess energy when the wind is blowing,
Okay.
then you can use it later when demand is high, even if the wind has died down.
So we need to find a way to kind of bottle up the wind.
Yeah, in a sense.
What are some of the energy storage technologies that could work alongside wind?
So battery storage is becoming more affordable and efficient. Pumped hydro storage has been around for a while.
Mm-hmm.
But then there's some really interesting things like compressed air energy storage,
Okay.
where you're compressing air into underground caverns.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's even using gravity to store energy.
Using gravity.
Yeah. So think about lifting heavy objects using excess wind power
Yeah.
and then slowly releasing them to generate electricity when the demand exceeds the wind generation.
Wow. That's amazing. It seems like there's a lot of innovation happening in this space. But, what about the environmental concerns?
Yep.
There's a lot of talk about the impact of wind turbines on birds and bats.
Yeah, that's definitely a valid concern.
Is that a significant issue?
I mean, responsible wind farm developers take it very seriously. Careful site selection is really important. Avoiding those areas where birds and bats congregate.
Yeah, I see.
And you can design turbines that are less likely to pose a threat to wildlife.
So it's really about finding that balance between harnessing clean energy
And protecting the environment.
and protecting the
Okay.
environment.
Exactly.
Are there any examples of ways that's happening?
Yeah, there are some wind farms now that are using radar systems to actually detect birds,
Oh, wow.
and then they automatically shut down the turbines to prevent collisions.
Huh. Well, that's great that they're taking those concerns into account.
Yeah.
So we've talked about the potential, the challenges, the innovations shaping the future of wind energy.
Yeah.
Where does this all lead us? I mean, can wind power really become a cornerstone of a clean energy future?
It really has the potential.
Yeah.
But I think it's important to think about wind energy in the context of all renewables
Right, right.
working together.
Okay.
Solar, hydro, geothermal, to create a truly resilient and sustainable system.
So not viewing those different energy sources as competition, but as working together.
Yeah, exactly.
Ah,
And that's where smart grids come in, a network that can intelligently manage the flow of energy
yeah.
from these various sources, balancing supply and demand.
So homes and businesses could be powered by a mix of wind, solar, other renewables,
Yeah.
all sort of orchestrated by this smart grid.
Exactly.
So it seems like the ultimate goal is a world where we're not dependent on fossil fuels anymore, and our energy comes from these clean, renewable sources,
Yeah.
working together in harmony.
Exactly.
This has been a really incredible exploration of wind energy so far.
It has, yeah.
But I'm curious, we've talked a lot about the technology,
Yeah.
but what about the human element? What role do policy and public perception play in shaping the future of wind power?
That's a great question. I mean, policy and public perception are absolutely crucial.
I mean, how do we make sure policies are actually supporting the growth of wind energy,
Hmm.
and that people are, on board with these sometimes massive projects?
Well, on the policy front, governments can create incentives for wind energy development,
Okay.
things like tax credits or subsidies.
Yeah, that makes sense. Removing those financial barriers can really help
Level the playing field.
level the playing field, make it more competitive.
Exactly. And it's not just financial support. Streamlining the permitting process is also really important.
Oh, okay.
We need clear and efficient regulations.
Yeah, to avoid all the red tape.
Exactly. We don't want unnecessary delays.
Right.
But, policy is only one side of the equation. Public perception matters too.
Yeah.
We need to make sure communities actually understand the benefits of wind energy, and we need to address any concerns that they might have.
Right, because I mean those turbines can be pretty controversial,
They can be, yeah.
especially if they're built near residential areas. How do we bridge that gap? How do we bring people on board?
Transparency and communication are key.
Mm-hmm.
I think we need to engage with communities early on in the process,
Okay.
listen to their concerns, and really work together to find solutions that work for everyone.
So it's about building trust and finding common ground.
Exactly.
It's interesting. We've gone from talking about the nuts and bolts of wind turbines to these bigger social and political dimensions.
It's fascinating.
It really highlights, how complex this transition to a clean energy future is.
It is. It's not just about building wind farms. It's about transforming an entire energy system.
Right.
And that requires a very multifaceted approach.
This deep dive has been incredible. We've gone through the history, the technology, the challenges, the innovations,
Even the human side.
even the human side of wind energy. And I think it's clear that wind power has a vital role to play in a more sustainable future.
It really does. And as we wrap up, I want to leave our listeners with one final thought.
Yeah.
What if we could go beyond just harnessing the power of the wind? What if we could actually give back to the environment in the process?
Give back to the environment. What do you mean by that?
Well, imagine wind farms that don't just generate clean energy,
Okay.
but also help restore ecosystems. So think about those structures as artificial reefs, attracting marine life,
Oh.
or providing nesting platforms for birds,
Yeah.
integrating wind energy into our landscapes in ways that enhance biodiversity. It's a challenge,
Yeah.
but it's also an exciting opportunity to kind of reimagine our relationship with nature.
Yeah, that's an inspiring thought. It's about going beyond just mitigating the negative impacts of energy production,
Yeah.
but actually using it as a way to make things better.
Exactly.
Well, this has been a really fascinating deep dive into the world of wind energy. Thanks for joining us. We'll be back soon with another topic. Until then, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep those windmills turning in your mind.